All right, good. What's happening out there in the real world? You know, I live in my little cave in here and I come up with all these great ideas and make it all sound so easy. So maybe I should know what's really happening out there. No, I'm kidding. I'm out there every single day with you guys. What's happening out there? What are you guys seeing? What are you feeling like you need the most help with?
Well, I'm just starting, so everything.
Everything, yes. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. That can actually be the thing to kick off this conversation as we talk about the day in the life of a real estate agent, right? That what I'm going to give you permission to not have to know it all before you get out there and actually start talking to people about real estate and selling real estate, okay? Do not what a lot of people do is they want to figure everything out, put the perfect stuff in place, get it all organized, make sure I feel comfortable with the contract, when in actuality you can start picking up the phone and calling people today. One, and the more people you call today and get into your funnel where you're dripping on them and following up with them and being reminded to call them again. Forget about real estate for a minute, okay? Real estate happens naturally. What you're doing is a connector of people. And this is, I'm telling you, I just had a call with a one-on-one coaching client, totally different company, not even at KW. She tracked me down for my book. And she was saying, this thing, I know I'm slow figuring it out. And I know it's taken me forever just to start putting a few people in. It's just making calls and writing those notes. But it is so fun. Like these people call me back and they're like, I got your note in the mail today. And they're like, oh, and she's like very, very high S personality. And I'll pause there for a second, just tell you what S means. There's personality profiles, DISC, we talk about in KW. Maybe you've even taken a DISC test when you came to KW, but DISC is just, there's like 4 personality types. There's D, which is direct, dominant. These are the people that like to get to the point quick. And the reason why I'm talking about personalities is because as you're talking to people as a real estate agent, when you start becoming a chameleon to their personality and you talk to their personality, it actually, first of all, makes real estate a little more fun. But when you're starting out new and you're still trying to figure out what to say, now I'm telling you there's 4 different ways to say everything that you learned. There's a D style, an I style, an S style, and a C style. When we say disc, it's like a frisbee disc, right? DISC. But D's are very dominant, straight to the point. I's are influencers. They love to, like at a party, they're going to bounce around and talk to everybody at the party. But if you get a D personality or a C personality, which I'll explain in a minute, if they're at a party, the D's are going to hide over probably in a corner with one person and have a really deep conversation with that person, but it'd be a high-end conversation. They won't be bouncing around the party. Now, if they are, it just means they're out of their comfort zone for their personality type, and that's what they do. Our regional manager, Steve Schleter, if you've heard of Never Ending Referrals, Steve Schleter is a perfect example. He is so uncomfortable, like showing up even at our regional events as the regional manager for Keller Williams, and he'd go around the room and talking to the agents because that's, I mean, you got to plug in, right? That he was drained by the end of the day, totally drained, and he would go to the hotel and just crash because he was out of his normal style for an all-day conference, right? Back, and there were days, I mean, I've been around guys since we had little banquet rooms with like 40, 50 people for our whole region at a regional event. Now you go to mega camp or something and it's like 5,000 people. You go to a family reunion and it's like 10,000 people. But they used to be rooms of 40, 50 people, and he was uncomfortable just doing that. So that D personality is direct, dominant. The I is kind of the influencer. They're flamboyant. I forget all the different I words that they use for that, but you can just Google DISC personalities and you'll see them. But they're outgoing. You got the I. Well, it's I is influencer, outgoing. When I'm on S, okay. S is safety, security. That's your mother hen. That's probably the person in the office. Many times it could be like a PC coach that's, really nice to everybody that's starting, and maybe they're not hardcore accountability and mean with cracking the whip, but they're like helping you out and sitting down with you and explaining a contract where you understand it. That's going to be an S personality. They want people to like them. They don't want people to feel pressured. And then the C personality is compliant. They're like checklist, and you give me a checklist and I'll do it, right? So if your checklist was to pull Facebook today and write down every single name in a notebook, and you send that to me today at the end of the day, that you printed off your Facebook friends list and you took a picture of the notebook that you write all their names in, and you sent that to me, you are a C personality. You might be a D personality as well, but the D's and C's only equate for about 10% of the population. There's about 5% of the population will be a D, and 5% of the population will be a C. The rest, 90% of the people, are I's and S's. So when I'll come back to, you don't have to figure everything out for the most part, because the I's and C's are 90% of the population, and I's are flying 1,000 miles an hour by the seat of their pants. Can you all guess what I am? Just from this conversation, I'm an I, right? I'm a flaming I if I'm flaming anything, right? So I'm an I personality, and the S personalities will just love everything. They'll just talk to you on the phone and catch up and do all that stuff. So that's 90% of the people. So when you start this list and you start calling people, you don't even have to talk about real estate. The I's talk about them. They'll love that, right? And then the S's personalities will talk about anything and everything: pets, dogs, weather, and probably bring up real estate. So just get the conversation started and start the relationships, because I can tell you, in this day in life of a real estate agent, we're going to tell you what they do to get their day going and how the successful real estate agents do it. But not one thing in here is about they totally understood how to fill in a contract, or they totally understood how to write a lease agreement, or what happens when they say come meet with me. These people just did the core activities and went and did it enough that by the time you get 6 or 7 people that say, yeah, I'd like to see what my house is worth, and you do that a few times, you're going to have the CMA down, right? And then that can morph into now being more on purpose to add a couple scripts in there to show them why the benefit to sell would be right now. And if you haven't heard this script before, I know I've probably said it 3 or 4 times, but it's so they had you come over and they're doing a value. Now, once you're comfortable with that, you're like, okay, now I just want to get some listings. I'm going on all these appointments and I'm not getting listings. Well, you're not going to figure out how to get them to sign on the dotted line until you get enough appointments. You're not going to get enough appointments until you call enough people. So it's about starting right now and figuring it out while you go, right? So once you're sitting in there and you're doing these appointments and you're like, wow, I just started making the calls. Now I'm getting an appointment every so often, but I'm not getting any listings. What do I do next? And then you could start with just saying, well, one thing I'll leave you with today is, if you guys really are thinking about selling, or you could even say, if you found the right house, would you guys absolutely be moving? It's like, well, we didn't think about it till we started seeing the value. We like this number. I mean, it definitely has us thinking about it. So the only thing I'll tell you is, between now and when you finally decide to move, you're actually losing buyers in the marketplace. They're buying stuff as they're coming on the market each day. These new houses are getting multiple offers. So all we're doing is losing buyers between now and when you decide you want to move. See, I still may leave that appointment without the listing appointment, but that one script right there just took it from great information and I'll forget about it in a day to, man, every day I've created this sense of urgency between every day we could be losing money. Right? So it just gets them to think differently. So don't feel like you have to figure it all out. It's great that you're coming and plugging in, but it's almost like you want to do a parallel business. Get out there and start calling people, capturing them, putting them in command. I mean, you want to figure out command, add 5 people a day, every day. Pick up the phone and call 5 people a day. You might have to dial 20 numbers. But by the time you connect with 5 people a day, you're going to get over the biggest hurdle that nobody figures out when they get into real estate. You got to have connections. You got to have people that will talk to you on the phone and eventually want to know what their house is worth, or tell you that they might be wanting to buy so you can set up a search in MLS. So if you don't even make enough dials, enough phone calls, and or you don't do it every single day, you're never going to figure it out. No matter how much information you grab, you're missing the opportunity to build that pipeline now. So I love when new people come to Ignite, because if they do the notebook and if they really find addresses and phone numbers, and if they call some of those people every single day, and they do it 5 days a week, day in, day out, and put those in the database and set up a reminder to call them again and just do what that says, what you're doing is, by the time you really figure out real estate, to figuring out real estate is, I'm closing a deal every so often. Now I need to make sure I get this set more. Well, by the time you get to the point where you sell a deal every so often, and now you want to turn it into a real business because you're excited about it and you love it, your pipeline from today until then would already be packed, and you will have calls coming in to where you're not having to find business out. So I'm glad you're going through Ignite with me. This is why I really talk about that notebook and the master list notebook as often as I do. Any questions about anything from anyone? All right. So we will jump into the content. I think I do need to share my screen here, right? I don't think you've seen my screen yet. Oop. All right, so this is a little bit of an overview over some of the things that we've been through so far. Is my screen coming through okay? We're looking at the day in the life. Okay, Spark 9. So now we're moving over to elements on Monday. On this one, just again, it is growing your business and then it's running your business. And we're about ready to move over into running your business. How do you market seller listings? How do you show buyers houses? How do you negotiate contracts? So this is going to get really detailed. So as we leave today, I hope you just play back in your head everything I just said. Get it going, get your list going, start making calls every day. You do not have to know real estate yet. In fact, the less you talk about real estate, the more successful I think you'll be in just connecting with people first, because then you're going to find the people that do want to get some real estate information, and you're going to find out that 98% of them aren't moving. So you don't need any real estate information, just community information, and be a person and be a connection.
Yeah,
So
I just did today, like I just made some calls of some people that, I haven't spoken to in quite some time. I don't have their addresses or anything. The only thing I had was their cell phone. Some of them, I don't even know their last name. But I just did like a quick call just as like a, catch up, hey, I'm going through my contacts, and, I just want to see if this was still your number. I haven't spoken to you in a while, yada, yada. Just asked a little bit about family, and then I just kind of got off the call. I was just like, hey, listen, it was great catching up, let's keep in touch. And that was it. I just hung up. So, kind of thinking about what my next step would be, or, because I didn't talk real estate or anything like that. I didn't want them to start like asking about me, because I didn't want to have to jump into that subject. So what would you kind of recommend my next step to be there?
Yeah. So it's a system, and it's in the book. It's send them a handwritten note is what I would say is next, just to say, so great catching up, right? Don't even put your name in there. Put your name in there, but don't put your business card in there or PS, because you didn't talk about real estate yet. And really, that's so great that you fought that urge to let that conversation go there. If it goes there and it's natural, it's okay, right? If they did bring it up, you could say, oh, well, I'm in real estate, but today's call was not about that. It really was just to catch up with you. Now, think about that right there. In our mind, what we just heard ourselves say is, I just let them off the hook from the sales pitch, right? Where normally somebody may have rolled right into, oh, well, yeah, are you thinking about buying or selling? And no, we're not. Oh, do you know anybody else that is? And now I've got that sales thing going again in that block, and they may not take my next call. The next call is an easy one. So right now, if you don't know what to say, and you don't know if you haven't even started real estate yet, they may not even know that you're in real estate, right? That next call is, call them in 4 weeks when the 8x8 says to call. You've sent the note, right? So they'll have had the note for a few weeks. They are going to say, you're just going to call and say, hey, I was just thinking of you again today. It was so great catching up last week. That's like the most common script. that I find works good, because we really aren't going to be in relationship and connected to them for about 3 or 4 or 5 connections. And that's when we've moved into a different realm where now we really are a person that they kind of like you first, right? There's no reason to not like you because you haven't thrown any sales pitches on them. So once somebody likes you, then what information we provide along with that makes them trust us. And then we earn the right to be their go-to person for that, because it seems like stuff we're talking about makes sense. And I already like you. So now I trust what this person's saying because you're saying stuff that's really happening out there. So our houses going like crazy right now. It's like, I mean, there are some that still fly off the shelves. There's some that sit on the market for a day or two, right? I know everybody thinks every house gets offers $100,000 over asking price, but it's not completely true. But for the most part, that's what we're always going to hear about, right? And see, one of the things there, just kind of a little sidebar. So when I'm educating people or asking for a referral, or my side back brain at all times is thinking real estate. How do I link this to a real estate transaction? That whole conversation right there, the one thing that comes out and goes, well, a lot of times people only hear about the houses that sell for $100,000 over. And unfortunately, that's the realtors that don't sell a lot of houses that maybe underpriced the house. They probably could have played the market a little differently. So, but that's all we ever usually hear about, is they don't have a sale very often and they sell one for 100,000 more. And it could have been because it was underpriced and that seller maybe left money on the table. I don't know what the situation always is, but yeah, that's what we're going to hear about most, right? So now I've just put this little question in the back. It's like, this person has said something that makes sense. I'm going to call them when I have real estate questions. So you can have some fun with it too, and you'll get there just by doing enough of it. But yeah, the second call could just be, hey, I was just thinking of you. And I just want to say how great it was connecting with you. So and here's what happens on that call every single time. Oh my gosh, we got your note. That was so nice of you. It's like, well, no, seriously, it was great catching up. I'm glad I picked up the phone and called. So it's like, well, I'm just, let you know I'm thinking of you. Okay. Now that next call might be where you call. So now we're talking 8 weeks down the road, right? So again, I would probably, if they pulled up and this is a new relationship that I've reconnected with, if I haven't even talked about real estate or it didn't even come up, which it usually comes up by now anyway, they've been getting stuff dripped on you with the Keller Williams logo, real estate. Not that they're sending them real estate information, but the real estate logo. They know what Keller Williams is, right? So they've gotten some of those drip pieces in between that 4-week call. They usually bring up, so you're in real estate? It's like, yeah, I am definitely available for you if you have any questions about it at all, right? And if they go any further with that, I'm going to play into the call. If they don't, then they were just curious. But now for week 8, more drip pieces, whether it's in my email or it's in a letter or whatever, it's got that Keller Williams logo on it. And I wrote them a note and I've called and checked in. It's like you are advancing through the processing part of their brain now. When they see your stuff, they feel safe. So they're going to take your call a lot of times, especially unless they're really in the middle of something. And if any of those are voicemails or that call at week 8 during the 8x8, so it's the second time I've called them after the note, first time we met, I'll probably get their voicemail a lot, right? And it's like, hey, nothing urgent. It's just Brad, just checking in, and click, right? So they're going to call back, maybe, maybe not, doesn't matter. But if they answer the phone, it's like, hey, today's call is about business. Do you have just a couple of minutes to give me some help? It could be this one, or it doesn't have to be, right? You could be calling them about, like when that call pops up, if I'm not really super connected with them or really just growing that relationship and don't feel like I know enough about them, I'm probably pulling up Facebook and just see what's going on their life, right? See if they're in Facebook, see if we're friends yet, because that would have been one of my steps in one of those other weeks, was to find them on social media and send them a message. And that message would be, hey, look, we're not friends on Facebook yet. I can't believe that. And I'd send them a direct message on that, right? And I'd ask to be their friend. So that would happen a week or two ago. But if the call popped up and I really don't feel connected enough yet, or not ready to go into real estate, I might pull up Facebook and just see if anything's been going on. So if they just got back from a vacation or something, you can just go, hey, it's Brad. Hey, what's up? It's like, oh man, it looked like you had a blast. I saw your Facebook stuff and you went on vacation somewhere. Then they start talking about that. And maybe we get off that phone call after that. It's like, well, that just looked cool. I just had to call you. I've always wanted to go to Mexico or whatever it might be, right? So, and then but eventually one of those calls in that first, second or third to the fifth or sixth call, which will be over the next 6 months or so, right? Because a call once a quarter is every 3 months. But somewhere along the line, they're going to get enough trickles in between that they've either called you about, hey, I was just curious how much this house was for sale for, or we saw a house going on for sale in our neighborhood, and I thought I'd give you a call and see if you can find out anything about it. They're just doing normal curiosity stuff, unless they're thinking of buying or selling. Then they are actually calling you because they're like, hey, we were just wondering, we might be thinking about moving. Where would we go get pre-approved? So see, I don't have to figure out what script to use because they're calling me with where they are in the process and we're starting it from there. But maybe that fourth or fifth call, I would say, hey, today's call is just a quick call about business. Do you have 2 minutes to give me some help? Well, yeah, what do you need? Now I can play into whatever, right? So the inventory is still short. I'm seeing people getting 20, 30, 40, $50,000 more than they should out of equity. We've also helped people not have to compete with houses as much, or whatever you can, say that you're comfortable saying. You're not making stuff up. But it's like, so if you know anybody, I saw a gap in the $250,000 to $350,000 price range that these houses seem to be selling the minute they're hitting, right? So now how would you know that if that were part of your script? Well, if you look at your homework here, it's going by 10, previewing 10 homes, holding, is it 10 open houses or making 10 contacts? You're pulling up expireds. You're looking at it, your FSBOs. You're doing your 5-year to 10-year back searches. So when you're doing the activities every day of a real estate agent, then you're going to know these things about the market and they become natural parts of your conversation. Does that help? Cool. So it's actually kind of fun. None of that you have to figure out ahead of time. It's absolutely worthless to get all that knowledge in your head first before you talk to somebody about it. Have the conversation come up. And if you don't know it, you can always say, you know what, I know exactly how to find out what that house is worth. I'm going to check that out and call you back with it. So now you get another free touch out of the deal, right? So it's just try not to make it more difficult than it is. And I say that because everybody makes everything more difficult than it is. So great question. So people do not decide their futures. They decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures. And that's from FM Alexander. But we talk about this because focusing on the core activities and creating a habit. And the one thing Gary Keller talks about, 66 days to a habit. It's really 66 days of doing the right thing, which is calling 5 people a day and opening up command 5 every day, feeding in new people every day. And once that becomes a habit, your phone starts ringing. You start getting, well, I mean, I jokingly say I'm one of the laziest realtors on the planet that sells 100 homes a year. It's because I don't feel like I have to work for any of those leads. Like I'm not cold calling people. My phone rings. And they say, hey, we want to know what our house is worth, or hey, we just found our dream home. I mean, this is one real example that happened just a week ago. Somebody who's not in the market, we're probably going to stay where we are, calls me out of the blue and goes, hey, this $600,000 house just hit the market. It looks like my husband's dream home. Oh, let's go look at it. Next thing we know, it's like, we got to get pre-approved. We got to do this and that. We wrote an offer on it. They put their house on the market for $450,000 million worth of real estate that I was not bugging them at all, other than sending them properties through MLS because they said, if we moved, we'd probably want a pool. And we were thinking about building, so they were getting newer homes. But because that MLS search was set up, sending them 1 to 5-year-old homes with pools, right? This house showed up and she saw it somewhere. It was a 20-something-year-old home with a pool, but it caught her attention and I didn't have it in the search. But because I was sending her properties all the time and they were looking at them, she called me, hey, this one wasn't on the list. By the way, one of the phone calls during that conversation and really kind of at a mastery level conversation here, right? You meet somebody, you put them on an 8x8 smart plan in Command, for example, write the note, I got week 4, I got week 8. But one of those is set up the MLS search, or anywhere in there, they say, well, if I were going to move, we'd probably want a pool and something newer. So they stop on the 8x8 plan and they go on our potential buyer plan. So on our potential buyer plan, there's a little few more calls. It's maybe a call every week or 2 times a week, whatever. It depends on how active they are. But there's set up an MLS search, right? So we've set up the MLS search and we're sending them properties. The emails and the letters that drip out behind that say, hey, are you still getting our list? Hey, are you still seeing the properties? Hey, are you driving by the properties? Hey, are you, any address that we didn't send you, you have an address you have a question about, just text me the address. So that's the message that's dripping in between there. And then we're calling and we're saying the call is, hey, just checking to see if you're driving by the properties, and you can text me about any address that you find. So you see how my message is all matching and they're actively looking. So there's even a trigger point in there, is like, have we gone out and showed them houses yet? Because once we start showing them houses, then they go on to our buyer to contract plan. We get a buyer agency sign and we start showing them properties. So those smart plans just stop wherever you are and start the next plan that's pertinent to their situation. So in this particular case, they had gotten stuff, said, are you driving by? Any address that you've seen that is not on my list, text me with it. Well, that's what she did. She just texted me the address and I pulled it up. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know why I didn't have this one on the list. And I go into MLS and I look and I'm like, well, because you told me you only want a brand new construction. So I bumped it up to 5 years, just to get more in there. Said, oh, I see why. That one's 20 years old. Yeah, I know. I didn't tell you we would go older, but this house is amazing, Brad. It looks totally unbelievable. It's like, well, let's go look at it. And next thing you know, boom, $1 million worth of real estate. So all those drip plans, people, when you're planting those seeds, actually, I'll say this is a common saying you're going to hear. Have you heard anybody say buyers are liars? Well, that buyer was a liar. And actually, she was into my networking group. And I flat out said that yesterday. And who laughed more than anybody else? Her. I sure did lie. I mean, that house is older than what we said we would move into, but it is my husband's dream home. And it's dated too. They got to do work to it. So anyway, the point is just by staying in touch and dripping on them that you're going to get that. So the habits come all the way back to connecting and staying in touch. If you follow any of the Keller Williams International stuff, Jason Abrams right now and Mark talk about a lot of stuff. And if you've seen the thing where Jason Abrams says, let's just draw the timeline of a transaction, right? And he says, on this transaction, I usually have my little whiteboard here. Let's see if I can pull this off. So find a dark enough pen here. All right, here we go. So he shows there's the timeline of a real estate transaction, right? And we're going to say, let's see, this is the end of the transaction. Am I on the right side? Is my camera backwards? Yeah, that's right. So this is when they buy. So that's when they buy the house right there. When they decide to get serious and buy a house happens right there. That's like 8 weeks of the transaction is the last part of the transaction, right? So now we go over to the beginning of a life cycle of a transaction. And this is where you're prospecting. So this is where your leads, this is where they're just a lead. So once you capture a lead, you have all of this in between here. This could be a month, 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, 5 years. And that's all the follow up. And you'll see Jason Abrams do this over and over and over again. The massive, massive part of the whole thing to get them from lead to buying a house is in the middle. It's the follow-up. It is the one piece that nobody does. We do stabs at lead generation, but then we never follow up with them, or we make a couple of attempts to stay in touch and then they just fade away because we got more leads. So when you master the habit of plugging them into Command and putting them on a smart plan that's 5 years long or 10 years long, and there's calls layered in there, that's when you're going to be able to determine your future, because there is no way, Brad Korn, really, truly, if you go 30 years back, actually, if you go to high school, I'm the jail kid. I'm the kid that should have been in jail and with a ruined life. I did nothing smart when I was in high school and junior high. For me to do this one thing in my business, to sell 100 homes a year, 60, 70 as an individual agent, to provide this lifestyle, I didn't drive that. It was the habits that I did that drove that. So I know I spent a little time on that slide, but I hope that really kind of anchors just how important this is. So just a quick overview. What are the key activities that need to be on your calendar? Again, we're just pulling like a sample calendar of what a successful agent does. And again, early in the morning, and in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, towards the back, Gary talks about the energy plan. And there is your planning time. There's your spiritual time. There's your exercise time. There's all those things that get that motivation and building for the day to be prepared. But the daily success habits happen before 11 o'clock or 11:30 in this case, which is just, so you see lead generation. What people skip is the next one. It could be 2 hours of follow-up. But that meant that if I was connecting with 5 people a day and I put them in and I do this long enough for 2-3 years, most of my lead generation is not generating leads, it's following up. And they're somewhere through that pipeline that now all of a sudden they're serious and we're selling them a house in the next week. So just like the example that I gave you a minute ago. Oh, and you do get to eat as you're a realtor. I don't know if it's really 11:30 to 12:30. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 3. I'm not saying that's good, but that is an ideal, actually, if we take the ultimate, like, just healthiest looking realtors we know. There's a lot of them in our company now, these young guns like Cody Gibson, right? Or Adam Hergenrother. I mean, these guys, their lifestyle is health and everything, and they look awesome. I don't think they're my age yet, but man, they look amazing. They have energy. They do the right activities because they've also gotten leverage too to do that. But 12:30 to 2:30 is run your business activities. That's like doing your reading, negotiating contracts, if you got trainings that you need to go on. And then 2:30 to 4:30 is to grow your business activities. So that's like the real estate stuff, going out and previewing some listings, getting to know the market, going out and showing clients houses and that kind of stuff. And then review your calendar for tomorrow at the end of the day, and then go just check out, right? And get that family time. So that's ideal calendar. And again, you're seeing the key activities. It's running your business and it's growing your business, which is what we cover in Ignite all the way through. And that's the majority of the middle of the day. Now, until you schedule your schedule on actual listing appointments and showing real buyers that are pre-approved that want to buy offers, if you've got 5 listing appointments or 5 buyer appointments that go between this 12 to 4:30, it's okay. You still got to do that, but that should not be replaced with anything else other than listing appointments or showing buyers houses, bringing money in. Whatever else you think needs to be done, processing this or running around getting that, dropping your dry cleaning off, all that other stuff, that you got to run your business and grow your business to keep going. So set weekly and daily objectives. Okay, this is probably the absolute coolest tool that Keller Williams has available. And for anybody who's going through Ignite for multiple times, the more you hear this, the more this might actually show up in your life. It is the least used, highest, best use tool that Keller Williams agents have available to them, and it's the 411. And it's for 4 weeks, 1 month, 1 year. And the way you're looking at it on the sheet is it shows your annual goal, your monthly goal, and then your 4 weekly columns that you got: week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. And I really want to explain how the best way to use this form is. So let's just say, if you're like every real estate agent, when you set goals and you say, how much money do you want to make? I already know what you're going to say. Is it $100,000? Everybody says $100,000, right? I want to make $100,000. Okay, $100,000. If you just do your notebook and feed 5 people in a day and talk and write a note and you skip everything else I've taught you, you will make $100,000 in real estate. I promise you. If you do it 5 days a week and you forget the rest of the system, all you do is connect, write a note, you will, and you do that 5 times a day, 5 days a week for the rest of the year, you will make $100,000 if you do nothing else. So when you set your annual goal, whatever it is, and we're going to say 120,000 for this example, for simplicity's sake. So here's what I would do. I would write 100, and you do your business goals and your personal goals can go on your 411, but it does need to be a SMART goal, something that's measurable, something that's, you know, trackable, it's specific, it's got time based on it, all that stuff, right? Because we're doing it in this year. It's not just a want list. This is your SMART goals. So 120,000. I want to lose 40 pounds in the year, right? Or in this case, I'm going to make it easy and say 60 pounds in the year. Okay. So that kind of stuff. So I would make 12 copies of that after I wrote that down on my annual goal, right? I'm kind of doing this wrong. No, I did that wrong. You're going to do that annual goal. Okay. That's going to be on every sheet that you make a copy of. The next thing you're going to do is we're in April. So this would be your April goal, right? So you might make 2 copies because you're going to need one for each month. You're going to make 12 copies. That's what it is. You're making 12 copies for each month. I was right. So I do my annual goal. I make 12 photocopies. Now I take the first one and I write April on it. And I'm going to write down what my April goal is. So my April goal of 120,000, pretty easy, $10,000, right? So it says I'm going to make $10,000 in commissions in April. And of my 60 pounds, I need to lose 5 pounds in April, right? 5 pounds over the next 12 months will equal 60 when I'm done. Did I do that right? Yeah, I think I did that right. So now I take my April sheet and I go make 4 copies of it. Because there's week 1 of April, week 2 of April, week 3 of April, and week 4 of April. So I make 4 more copies of the April goal. And then what I do on week 1, I have my $10,000, I need to generate $2,500 worth of activities, right? Even though a commission check might be $5,000, I need to get something in the works to at least get a $5,000 commission check coming through that week, right? And for my 5 pounds for the month, I need to lose 1 pound this week, 1.5 pounds this week, whatever it is, right? So it's very measurable. Then I'm going to do that same thing on the other 4 weeks too. So now I've got my 411 for April done. And what's going to happen, actually, you're not even filling in the other 3 sheets yet. We're just finishing week 1 of April this week, right? So in that goal, I had $2,500 and I had 1.5 pounds. So now tomorrow at the end of the week, I look at that and go, how much did I generate? 0. Okay. And how many pounds did I lose? 0. Okay. So for this week, I zeroed. I bombed out, right? So now I got to take my second sheet out and carry that over. So now it's 2,500 plus 2,500. I need a $5,000 commission check week number 2. And I have to lose 2 pounds in week number 2. Right? Because now or 3 pounds technically. So now it's like, what are the activities that I need to do that I didn't do last week to make these happen? You can't keep carrying this over. You have to, if that's reality, but then reality at the end of this month, when you have $10,000, you have to come up within the next week and you have to lose 5 pounds. The reality is, I don't know if my goal is realistic. That's what we should say. But most people say, well, I'll just keep making it up. Well, if you use the 411 properly, you'll realize there is no making up. It's piling up right now, right? And that's going to turn into $20,000. So that's where, what is it going to take to get a $10,000 commission check? Well, I'm going to have to take 3 listing appointments, maybe 4 listing appointments in order to get 2 of them to be sold, right? By the time this week's over or this month is over. So you got to do those activities and break that down on your 411. So it is in the very first week to get $2,500 commission. I'm going to have to at least take one listing appointment. I mean, I'm getting $0 off of zero. And week 2, if I did hit my one listing appointment and they listed, well, week 2 rolls around and I've already got, it's a $400,000 house. So I've got my $5,000 met. But now it doesn't mean I should stop working. I might go ahead and start on week 3 and week 4 and try and get another listing appointment. That's when it starts getting fun, because now it's not pressure to get one. You're like getting ahead of yourself. So when they go on here, they're absolutely going to happen, or they shouldn't be on there. And I've challenged a lot of people. It's like, whatever their goal is, if you're behind on your goal, well, and it doesn't look like you're getting any better because you're not doing the right activities, right? If they're doing the activities, then we can pinpoint what's not happening in the activities. But they probably most of the time aren't doing the activities to make that happen. So what are we going to take off your goal? It's like, pay off that credit card. Oh, I really didn't want to have that credit card next year. Well, how bad don't you want it? I mean, we're talking about making an extra hour worth of calls to get rid of your credit card. Is that worth it? And then you can start doing the right activities again. So that's how a 411 works. Any questions here? Because it is the coolest form. Is that a different way? Are you thinking about this form a little different if you've heard of it before? Yeah. Great. So again, commit to the 80-20 rule. 20% of what you do every day generates 80% of your results. So if you want to increase your income, or if your income is still kind of too close to zero because you're new, then you need to do all of the right activities as much as possible to shoot out of that goal. And whatever you've done to this point to be where you are, if you're not generating the income and the activity you want, or the results that you want, you got to beef up. You don't even know what 20% is. If it's 1 hour, if it's 2 hours, or if it's 4 hours. Because also when you start in real estate, you don't have all the skill sets yet. In all these calls, I make everything probably sound easy, right? But it's just with time, you're going to get those skill sets in, and doing it more and more. Like I said at the very beginning of the call, the agents that do this every day just did it every day until they got successful, and they did all the right activities. So right now, you don't know if it's an hour or 2 hours, and the 411 will help you pinpoint that pretty quick. Because if you know it's 1 hour of calls until I get an appointment to get to my $2,500, and you don't get it, and it's a zero, next week, now it's 5,000, and now it's 2 hours of calls. So now I got to do 2 hours of calls. Now, if in that 2 hours of calls, I get an appointment and get them to list with me, now I know it's 2 hours of calls every 2 weeks to get my one appointment, to get my second one by the end of the month, whatever it might be. So when you're new, unfortunately, you almost need to start out every day at 4 to 6 hours on everything, so that you can actually get your stuff done earlier if you figure it out, but at least you're getting it done somewhere in between, and that will eventually close up to where it's a lot less time because you're better at it and you're more skilled. And if you had your script book that you tracked around with you and all that stuff, you're gonna have the scripts figured out. Any questions so far? Just absorbing, and really, like, think of your business like a business with all this stuff. So setting your objectives, translate your weekly goals into daily objectives. So again, whatever you put on that weekly goal, underneath that is going to be what has to happen each day, 5 days a week. They have to be timely, identifiable. You got to be able to track them, obtainable, and purposeful. So purposeful means it is not like, hey, get all my dry cleaning and all this stuff done this week so I can focus on my business. So it needs to be purposeful towards your business that you're doing. There is a calendar built into, well, actually not built into Command. We actually do have one in Command, but in Google, I don't know if I have my phone sitting over here with me, so I can't show you my screen. When it says put your big rocks in my calendar, anything personal that's happening, whether we're going to St. Louis on Saturday to hang out with my grandson Owen, or on the 15th of this month, we're doing dinner for an engagement dinner that for my stepson. If that is already on my calendar, the minute that date gets booked, my wife knows to make sure it's on my Google Calendar and it's blocked out. Because what I do, I should find my phone and show you guys what my phone looks like. So let's get into my calendar here. So that is what my calendar looks like in a day, right? And so these, and mine are all color coded too. So red is basically personal stuff, and now it won't refocus. Red is yellow, is personal stuff. The yellow stuff is actually stuff that's on my calendar that I should not be doing. There, that what you're seeing right there is actually inspections on the contracts that we received on our properties. So what that is somebody else, my assistant or somebody could go let the inspector in on a property. The green is actual listing appointments. That's like money making activity. Red is personal. That's my big rocks. Purple is coaching stuff. Yellow is things that I need to be cautious of, because if I do go to those or I don't have anybody to go in my place, I have to go. So there's, when somebody says, hey, can you do an interview or a webinar on Wednesday? No, I can't. It's gone, right? So I book everything. And actually, I only put in my people appointments on my calendar too, where I physically have to be somewhere. So once that's on my calendar, then I always book in the white space. If somebody called me right now and said, we're ready to list our house, actually in, what is it, about 15 minutes, I will have white space for the rest of the day. So now I have a choice, right? It's like, well, how fast do you want people coming through your front door? Is it something that you want to be on the market tomorrow? Well, we're still doing some cleanup stuff. So I could either book that appointment tonight and maybe a two-step listing appointment, or I could say, so if you guys finish cleaning tonight, do you think you've got the house as ready as you want to get it for Saturday, tomorrow morning? And if they said, yeah, that's kind of what we were hoping, either Saturday or Sunday. So I'll look at my calendar and it's like, boy, Saturday's all white space, right? Actually, in this Saturday until 3 o'clock, I get my grandson. So I look at that and I go, all right, I got my wife's workout class from 8:30 to 9:30, yoga. So I will look at my calendar and go, well, I could come over as early as like 10 o'clock and shoot the pictures and have you on the market for the weekend. They're like, that would be awesome. Just book my green block in there because I had white space. And because it's a listing appointment, heck yeah, I'm doing it on a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, right? If they are ready. Now, and chances are it's somebody that's already called. We've already talked about numbers. We've already whatever. And they called and said, we finally got the house ready. Now, I wasn't like bugging them or thinking about them. They thought they were going to be on the market a week ago. And they called this week and say, I think we're ready this week. Okay, what day do you think you're ready to have people come through the front door? It's like, well, I figure we finish Friday, we could be on Saturday. So I don't even like, when they called on Wednesday or Thursday to say they're ready, I'm like, great, you want to meet tonight? No, I'm already qualifying that to make sure, because I only have to go out there one more time. I'm doing pictures, measurements, getting all the paperwork signed, one more meeting, sign goes in the yard, showing start. There's no, it's, when you streamline your system like that, I can tell you what I figured out is there's no way you're ever going to sell 50 homes a year, let alone 100 homes a year, if you're making 5 trips out to a property before they list, right? Or if it takes you an hour to do a CMA. So as you're doing these things, if it takes a while and you hear somebody doing it faster, learn how they're doing it and do that now while you got all this time. And that's when you call yourself the laziest realtor on the planet, because you've streamlined everything to process like you were doing 300 sales a year, and you're doing 100 sales a year in a third of the time. It's awesome. It's awesome. And there's so many people that have been there before us. So you can learn from so many people that are already doing that. All right, so create accountability. I mean, again, accountability is the biggest part of any of it, because we're self-employed, and holding ourselves accountable is the biggest thing. So that's the best one. Like if you have a PC coach or something in the office, or your team leader or anybody in leadership, if you just share with them what goals you're doing, I'm telling you as a team leader, that if somebody walked into my office and said, hey, I've got some goals set and I've been going through some training and I've written down my stuff and I got my 411 here, and I was just wondering if you would help me stay to that. They're like, oh my God, are you kidding? This is what I love to do, but I can't get anybody to do it because they're not wanting to do it. So when you show up with setting your goals in a 411 and you ask to be held accountable, your team leader better just be going crazy, like crazy, like you're their favorite agent in the whole office. Doesn't matter if you sold nothing or a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, I love it when the top producers come in and say, hey, will you help me stay accountable, right? That's, as a team leader, that's awesome. So set your goals, do the key activities, right? I mean, you'll have them right there on the 411 in the weekly deal. And then at the end of the week, you measure your results. Then you look and see what you got to carry over to the next week. That's evaluating the process, or what did I not do? And that 411 makes you get honest with yourself, right? And it really does detail it for somebody else to help you too. So if you felt like you did stuff right and didn't hit the numbers, that's where you can go back to your accountability person and go, man, I really felt like I did everything right, right? And they might see the gaps and the holes of where you didn't. And then you just make your adjustments. So at one, my very first deal came in and I was thrown into a tailspin for 3 days, just getting it on the market and doing all that stuff. So now I need to make adjustments. So that would be, all right, now I see why somebody had a system on from list until close. What is the things that happens on day 0, day 1, day 2? I need that list. Who was it that had that? Wonder who I need to call and get that from. So you make your adjustments and then you go for the next week and you set your goals again. So holding yourself accountable is the hardest thing that you will do, because nobody's going to make you hold yourself accountable unless you give it out to the world, or find the other people and Ignite. You want to really have fun with accountability, get your Ignite crew together and get them all in a circle, and you guys meet once a week and go over everything you learned. That way you're getting it again, and you're doing it with people that think they want to take their business to the next level. That's why they're attending in the first place. So share your goals with anyone, short, long-term, whatever. Plan those check-ins, whether it's once a week, whether it's whatever, and then make a date on when you want to get that stuff done and when you're going to check in with each other. And then you hold that accountable. And I will tell you, here's the other thing. Whenever you have an accountability partner, you better be the one that sticks to this, because they will not. And really, most of the time, neither accountability party does, and nothing really ever happens. And then pretty soon it's like, whenever somebody says, go find a accountability partner, you're like, yeah, that didn't work. So you hold them to it. And that makes you more accountable, and they're going to thank you for it, because you actually did do what you said you were going to do. But we all get busy. We all have stuff that comes up. So anyway, we are already at our ha-has and recaps. Oh, here's the thing about doing the daily activities. Do 10 contacts a day. This is just during Ignite. It's to ignite your business and blow it up. I'm letting you off the hook when I say 5, but I'd rather see you do 5 than not do 5 or not do 10. So if you get to 10, that's just going to help you get there a lot faster, and have 10 conversations a day. So really, whether it's 10 or 5, it's the 5 conversations, add them to your database and write them a note, 10 handwritten notes. And then for you to really start plugging into the market, go preview 10 homes a week. 10 homes a week is 2 houses a day. So run out for an hour and go check out 2 properties that just hit the market. By the way, if you really did that, you went out at 2 new listings close by, 5 miles of where you currently live. You did that today. You do that on Monday. You do that on Tuesday. You do that on Wednesday. I'm telling you what, the top agent in your office, you'd know more listings on the market and what's inside of them than somebody who's been doing this for 20, 30 years, because they're not doing that every day. So you will naturally be attracting real estate by knowing every single house. You'll be at a party on the weekend and you hear somebody talking about, oh yeah, do you see that condo come on the market? It's like, oh, I've been in it. And they're like, oh, I thought it was horrible. It's like, oh, it looks pretty nice, whatever. Or they think it's like, condo came on the market. It looks like a great price. It's like, yeah, I actually was in that and it is not livable at the moment. It was kind of crazy what I found in there. So all of a sudden you're having conversations around real estate. It's like, who's the specialist? The person who knows every single property that's on the market right now and has been in them all. So enjoy this time while you're newer to be able to go in and know every single property that's hitting the market. All right, so I'm going to give you the, and I hope the recording does this too. I don't know if we actually get to do surveys on the recordings, but fill out the survey for us and let us know what you thought of today's class. I say class, but conversation, right? Click on that. It'll open up a new tab so that when we close out here, you've got the tab open and you can fill that out before you close out your computer for the day.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much, Brad. It was excellent.
Good stuff. Still getting you excited about real estate a little more every single day.
Yes, yes.
Oh,
Thank you
all
so
right.
much.
I can't wait to keep me posted on your success. I want to hear what you're doing and what's working and what you get to use.
I will. I'll speak with you next week. Have a great weekend.
All right, you too.